All right, first live stream in a very long time. I was looking at the calendar today, and it's been just a couple days short of a month since the last live stream, which seems crazy. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but I guess it has been. And since the last live stream, I've been all the way around the other side of the world, effectively, down in Argentina, visiting my family. I've come back. We've done a week and a half of shows at this point. All sorts of crazy stuff has happened politically. All sorts of stuff has been going on with the David Pakman Show. And here we are. And yet we are back in the same room and doing another live stream. So I'm glad to be doing this again. Hope to get back to the regular schedule. I know a lot of people have been posting tweets and Facebook messages. There's a thread on our Reddit discussion forum. Will there ever be live streams again? And I'm here to say, yes, there will. Yes, there will, and this is the first one. So I will be taking questions from you. I will be talking about politics. I'm also going to be implementing a new sort of paradigm when it comes to the live streams. Historically, I always start the live stream, as I will today, with this graphic where I say, if this is your first live stream, this is a live stream that is live, assuming that it's live. Number two, I will take questions via Super Chat. Super Chat questions and comments will be read, addressed, answered if they warrant an answer. And then that's when I talk about how new members and patrons will get live thank yous and shout outs during the stream. And, sometimes we go into like almost telethon mode with the patrons and the members and the entire thing. And the reason for it is pretty obvious, which is things have been pretty tough lately for the show financially because of what's been going on YouTube. But I've been getting some complaints, right? I've been getting some complaints from people saying, David, it's a bit too much talking about Patreon and membership during the live streams. You should instead mention it at the beginning, do some thank yous and updates on how that's going halfway through, and then mention it at the end. And what a lot of people are suggesting is that we'll get just as many new members and patrons if I do that, as opposed to regularly go back and do member thank yous and talk about that. So I'm going to try that today. Okay, and we will see if people are right that actually by talking about membership and Patreon less, we will actually get more people to contribute. So I will say a very brief few words about what's going on, because a lot of people have been wondering over the last month what's going on financially, and then I will leave that topic until we are halfway through. So the big picture is David Pakman Show in a funding crunch. I am now considering YouTube effectively done. Of course, Super Chats contribute towards YouTube revenue, but effectively we are no longer considering YouTube ad revenue from ads playing before our videos in terms of making budgeting decisions for the show, because it's become too unreliable. We've lost about 80% of the revenue, and it's just not smart financially to count on that money. So there's basically two primary ways that we are funding the show. If you've never heard this actually is news to some people. Number one, direct memberships at davidpakman.com/membership. You drag that red dot wherever you want or keep it where it is. Click the red sign up button, and then you can become a member very easily. If you want a discount off of membership, you use the coupon code IVoted17. It'll save you 40%. Real easy. You'll get the bonus show. You'll get the commercial-free show. Now, the other thing we've been doing is trying to build up Patreon, and we were so close to 2,000 patrons at the end of August. And of course, on the first of the month, 5, 6, 7% of our patrons' credit cards have expired or get declined, and we're back down to now 1,882 patrons. The big news with Patreon is that we're adding benefits to Patreon effective tomorrow, and you can already see this listed at the $2, $5, $10, and $25 levels. There will now be bonus show access, full show access. So it's no longer just, hey, I throw a little money on Patreon and I don't get anything. There will now be both bonus show and full show access through Patreon. And of course, we're trying to get 2,000 patrons. When we do that, I will do an entire show from the studio with my hair like this. We've been teasing it. We get so close. And then the first of the month comes and we get knocked down. That's all I will say about Patreon and membership. We are not doing the big telethon today. And thus, I won't mention it again, but of course I will do thank yous halfway through the stream. Super Chat. Super Chat is a great way to get me questions and comments. Because it can be difficult to keep up with the regular chat, and it's another way to support the show. Just to give you an example, because it's been so long since I did a live stream, just to give you an example of what happens when somebody sends a super chat, we have one here. We have a $6.66 super chat from 0132 who says, David, please, if you played Destiny 2 with me, this would be $25 a month, I swear. I'm aware of Destiny 2. I've not played it. It would be very, very boring to play it with me because I have no idea what's going on with that game. Although I have friends, great people, absolutely the best people who can play it and play it with the best of them. All right. So I don't know. I'm not opposed to playing Destiny 2 with you in principle, but I just don't think that it would be very much fun. Okay, so tomorrow on the program, we are going to have a really great interview, assuming our connection holds, because we had a pretty big tech issue today with our interview sort of system that runs on Skype, but it is not just Skype. I'm hoping to speak tomorrow on the program with Zenta Bryce, who has a very interesting book about what it was like to actually grow up in the former Soviet Union. It's a really unique take, not something we're probably used to hearing too much. A lot of ideas of what it might have been like to grow up in those circumstances in the former Soviet Union. But I think it's going to be a very, very interesting interview. And then we also have, we have been, during the vacation, we released a number of long form videos. And those were released on YouTube, and those have been on the broadcast show last week and this week, and the reaction to them has just been incredible. And we still have one more. One was on today's program, Socialism Has Never Worked, Debunked. That was the subject of today's long-form video. And then as of right now, and this of course can change, next Tuesday, our broadcast show, we'll have a long-form video on voter suppression and voter fraud, okay? Voter suppression and voter fraud. And I think that will also be a very, very interesting one. And of course, these have already been made available on YouTube. The other thing that's going on with the show, really interesting interviews coming up next week right now. And I always sort of hesitate to give you the interview schedule because interviews so often get moved around, or the guest forgets that they need to be on Skype, and they don't even have Skype, even though we've agreed to a Skype interview where we can see the guest or whatever. But at least to give you a sense of the types of interviews we're working on, I'm scheduled to interview Sean McFate, who's a former mercenary, okay? Super interesting novel that he wrote, sort of a fictionalized version of his work as a mercenary. I think that will be very, very interesting. We will also be speaking to, at the recommendation of the audience, Steve Leto, or Leto. I'm not exactly sure how he pronounces his last name. He's an attorney who specializes in automobile-related law. So everything from lemon law to warranty law and all sorts of the stuff that we sort of have a sense is really not working in our favor. Steve Leto. We'll find out how he pronounces his last name next week. He will be joining me. And also, this is very exciting to me. I recently read the novel Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, who's also, by the way, the screenwriter and producer of Wayward Pines. He will be joining me, and I'm a big fan of Blake Crouch, so I'm really, really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a really, really great interview. And this isn't even officially on our calendar yet, but we have agreed on a day with Elizabeth Kolbert. Elizabeth Kolbert wrote the great nonfiction book, The Sixth Extinction, one of the books that actually President Obama, I believe, once recommended and said that he had read himself and recommended to others. And Elizabeth Kolbert is scheduled to be with us for a two-part interview, which I think is going to be absolutely fantastic. And that and also Ken Caldera, who's an expert on ocean acidification. And when we talk about climate change and we talk about sea level and ocean temperature, those are only parts of what's going on. And actually, as Elizabeth Kolbert describes in The Sixth Extinction, the ocean water becoming more acidic is a really big factor when we think about climate change and extinction of species above and beyond what's called the background extinction rate. So there's going to be a lot coming up. It's going to be a very, very busy September, and I look forward to having everybody with us. On the program tomorrow, I will be talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger's new sort of mission to end gerrymandering, or what we might know of as political redistricting, right? And it's so weird how in the Trump era, people who I would never say that's someone that we can sort of ally with on some issues. In the era of Trump, it's John McCain is making a lot of sense on some issues, Arnold Schwarzenegger making a lot of sense on some issues, Mitt Romney making sense on some issues, even George W. Bush, and I've been very careful not to normalize George W. Bush, but even George W. Bush actually making sense on some issues. So we will talk about that on tomorrow's program. Also, some of you may remember this, some of you may not. 4 years ago, I was featured in a documentary about bullied LGBT teenagers who had tragically taken their own lives, which is a really, really serious issue. And I was listed in a montage of supposed dead gay teens by suicide after being bullied. And it was odd because, of course, I wasn't a teenager at the time, and I'm not gay, and I wasn't bullied, and I was alive at the time. I hadn't committed suicide. And the clip sort of went a little bit viral 4 years ago, and then it kind of went away. And a couple days ago, a friend of mine sent me a message saying, hey, you know that you're on the front page of Reddit right now? And I said, front page of Reddit? I've been on vacation. I don't even know what's going on. Went to Reddit, and it turns out that there was indeed a thread, something like, this man once found out he was dead by being featured in a documentary about teen bullying or something like that. That resurfaced and drove an absurd amount of traffic. I mean, absolutely absurd amount of traffic to that video. And we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. And also, we sort of have a sense of how being president has been pretty good financially for Donald Trump. We talked about foreign dignitaries coming to the U.S. and staying at Trump's hotels. But there's an even more disturbing trend that USA Today, of all media outlets, did a very interesting investigation into. USA Today was able to track down, and I'll talk tomorrow on the program about the way they did it. USA Today was able to track down lobbyists and corporate CEOs that are members of Trump's golf clubs, who, by the way, have been spending time at Trump's golf clubs at the same time as Donald Trump has been on one of his endless golf vacations. So initially we thought, well, okay, Trump's spending all this time at his golf club, and it's expensive for taxpayers because Secret Service has to get set up there, and that's funneling money into Trump's coffers, and Trump's lazy and doesn't want to work. It may actually be even worse than that. It appears as though this may be a way to buy access to the president. And by the way, buy access to the president in a way that directly benefits the president's businesses, which of course supposedly are in a trust right now, but that money's going to be there waiting for him when he is no longer president of the United States. And this is incredibly concerning, and by every indication, completely legal. By the letter of the law, strictly speaking, it's legal. There may be sort of more subjective applications or interpretations where what Donald Trump is doing is not legal in a sense by receiving this money. And of course, he would say he's never influenced by what any of these lobbyists or corporate CEOs tell him after they've paid their $100,000 initiation fee at his club, and he sees them there and they talk to him. He would never do anything that would benefit them. But of course, we realize that that's not the case, and Trump probably is doing many, many things that benefit those corporations that are represented by CEOs and lobbyists at his own clubs, remember. So it's bad. It's really, really bad. We'll talk about that. And also tomorrow, it has been revealed that Facebook sold ads to a Russian company during the 2016 election, which, if true, and why Facebook would lie about this unprovoked, I don't really know. If true, this would suggest, or at least raise the question of why Russia would be buying political ads related to an American political campaign on social media websites. And of course, the implications of that revelation are huge, and we're going to dig into those tomorrow. I also plan to talk tomorrow, although with everything that's going on with Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Jose, Hurricane Harvey, and a lot of other news that's breaking, I don't know that I'll get to this tomorrow, but I wanted to talk about the complete and utter chaos that's happening because Donald Trump, at least at one moment today, seemed to be siding with Democrats on the issue of the debt ceiling. And when I see Donald Trump side with Democrats, I don't think, oh, he genuinely agrees with Democrats on this particular issue from a philosophical point of view. I assume, like with most of Donald Trump's positions, that he doesn't fully understand the issue, and someone got his ear and planted some seed of an idea that has him thinking that this is his position versus that being his position, and it's mere coincidence that he happens to be at odds with Republicans and seemingly more in line with Democrats on the issue of the debt ceiling. Every time there's some kind of, what would we call it, a surprise from Trump, seemingly ideologically, I have not once been convinced that it really gives us insight into Trump's true political philosophy. I don't believe he really has a political philosophy. I think that his guiding principles are self-enrichment, greed, and delusions of grandeur, which inform a lot of his actions and activities, period. And that's really the end of it. So we'll talk about that tomorrow as well. And I've got a bunch of other stories bookmarked, but it's never totally clear what we will and won't get to, particularly because between the hours of 3 and 6 a.m., a lot of things seem to happen. So I used to prepare like almost all but one story for the next day's show the day before. I've stopped doing that because if I prepare more than 2 or 3 stories the day before, I end up having to scrap a bunch of them and wasting a lot of time. So I no longer am doing that. Let's jump back into super chats that are coming in here. Okay, 0132 has sent a second super chat for $11.11. You worry that monies will incentivize you to forsake truth in favor of profits? Also, a news anchor in my town has the same name. How do I find out if Crosscheck killed my vote? On that second question, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea how you find out if Crosscheck killed your vote if 2 people share the same name. There should be 2 people with the same name that voted, so that's a start, but beyond that, I am not totally sure. On your first question, am I worried that the financial situation will sort of incentivize the David Pakman Show to forsake truth in favor of profits? You know, the whole point of trying to replace the lost YouTube ad revenue with Patreon and membership dollars is so that we can not worry about what it is that we're saying in order to achieve some level of financial success or accomplishment. That's the idea. So I actually think it's quite the opposite. When we have, you know, right now the target is 2,000 patrons who are funding the show fractionally, a couple bucks at a time, no one person is going to be able to influence the show because, after all, they would only be one of 2,000 people that are contributing, and 2,000 people will never agree on anything. In other words, 2,000 people would not have any unified set of demands that would be able to influence the show. So I actually believe that if we were depending on YouTube ad revenue, which we really aren't anymore because there's almost none of it left, we might make decisions against serious stories that could be marked as not family friendly by YouTube and thus not make money. We never did that, but conceivably it could happen. I think that we're going in the opposite direction. I think that we're going in the opposite direction by virtue of trying to separate our program completely from dependence on YouTube funding. Okay, J Wolf 1991 has sent a $20 super chat with no question or comment. Thanks very much, J Wolf. Appreciate that. Hobbitten has sent the 10 British pound super chat. It's time we stopped saying Bush is just as bad as Trump. Bush was dumb, but Trump is literally empowering Nazis. Bush at least wanted to do good. Trump's actions and intents are far worse. Yeah, I addressed this a little bit at the beginning of the live stream, Hobbitten. I mentioned, and I've said before, compared to Donald Trump, George W. Bush seems sort of sober and reasonable in his demeanor. I don't agree with his politics, and I vehemently disagree with many of the decisions that George W. Bush made. So I've been pretty careful and have frequently said, just because Trump makes Bush look reasonable, just because Trump makes Mitt Romney look reasonable, just because Trump is so out there that Arnold Schwarzenegger and John McCain and Mitt Romney are coming out of the woodwork and saying, hey, Trump's off kilter on issues A, B, C, and D. I don't want to normalize people like George W. Bush and Mitt Romney. And I just have to think back to the campaign of George W. Bush against John Kerry to remember just how out there George W. Bush is and the horrible and destructive decisions that he made economically, socially, culturally, militarily. I just have to remember Mitt Romney and his binders full of women and strapping his dog to the roof of the car while it had explosive diarrhea and all of that stuff and the infamous please proceed governor moment, right? I just have to think back to that campaign and I remember just because Trump makes Romney look okay doesn't mean that Romney is really okay, right? So yeah, I think you're making a number of good points there. Juko Virtanen has sent a $10 super chat. Our democracy is in danger. Our best chance is to force Congress to remove Trump and Pence using a general strike. I created a Facebook group called General Strike to help organize it. You know, Juko, I've been thinking a lot about this. And I don't know if the best move is for Congress to remove Trump and Pence. Number one, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that if Trump gets removed, Pence gets removed. And that puts Pence in power, I think, on all issues other than haphazard military action. Donald Trump is less dangerous than Mike Pence and more impotent than Mike Pence and less pragmatically able to get things done. However, even if Trump and Pence go, then it's Paul Ryan. And while Paul Ryan, again, seems much more sober and nuanced than does Donald Trump, I don't want Paul Ryan having more power. So I've said before, and I believe that it still holds true, if you are a progressive, the best solution might be that a scandal-ridden Trump stays through a disastrous 2018 midterm election and ultimately gets crushed in 2020, unable to accomplish almost anything. Almost every day I move more in that direction, and reasonable people can disagree, and I'm open to hearing about those disagreements, but I think we have to be very, very careful what we wish for. Jermaine Fodor, or Fodor, has sent a $10 super chat with no question or comment. I appreciate that. Yesenia Moreno has sent a $2 super chat. Can you do a deep dive on public education? That's a good idea. I'm going to make a note of that, Yesenia. Yesenia, who I believe is not only a member, but maybe also a patron. Thank you, all-star. Triple threat. Triple threat means super chat, Patreon, and membership, by the way, if you didn't know that. Very good idea, public education. And really, I mean, we could wrap in a lot of other elements to a long-form piece on public education. 013232 has sent an $85.58 super chat. I believe one of the top 5 super chats that we have ever received. Just want it to be an even $100.01. Keep doing what you do. We need more principled, reasonable people in the world. Also, don't tell my wife she's mad that I got pizza last week. Okay, well, listen, I don't know your wife, and I would not pretend to tell her anything. But I appreciate the support. Really, really appreciate everybody who's contributed by Super Chat. Okay, a few interesting Reddit discussion forum threads I want to point call your attention to for people who don't know. The David Pakman Show does have a discussion forum, and we now have over 4,000 of our viewers and listeners. I participate in the discussion forum. Producer Pat participates in the discussion forum. I actually don't know if producer Noah Ferguson is on Reddit, but he should be. That I can tell you. That I can tell you for sure. And that discussion forum is hosted on Reddit. So instead of installing some kind of message board software on our website, we are using the Reddit platform, and you can shortcut to that discussion forum at davidpakman.com/Reddit. Really, really good discussions that happen there. A discussion about the recent round of Hillary Clinton attacks on Bernie Sanders, which I spoke about today. Other deep dive long form video suggestions for how I might get onto the Joe Rogan show, which is something I've expressed some interest in doing for publicity's sake. And some of our viewers said they watch Joe Rogan and would be interested in seeing me on there. A lot of really, really good discussions on Reddit. And I know a lot of people sort of hesitate sometimes to get involved in platforms like Reddit because of the trolling that takes place. I can assure you that we have a number of very, very well-trained and professional moderators, some of whom overlap with our moderators here on YouTube, on the YouTube live streams. And I think that it's a really great place to have political discussion. And don't worry, trolling is not allowed. No trolling allowed to the extent that we see it. So check that out at davidpakman.com/Reddit. Okay, let me do now something I am making more and more of an effort to do. Although I prioritize the super chats during the discussions, during the live streams, I do want to make an effort to look through and scan for questions and comments in the regular chat, and let me do that now. Big Jasper saying fake news, David is a gay dead teen. That's very, very interesting. Let's see what other questions we have in there. Have you tried selling products on your show? Well, we have apparel at davidpakman.com/gear, as well as coffee blends and the like, and bumper stickers. I don't know if you mean, have I tried just pitching random products during the show? I don't think I have. Let's see what other questions we have here. Is this really live? Well, yes, Bella Hernandez asked if it was live. Like, can I read her comment right now? Well, I didn't then, but I did now, because it is really live, and it was at the time. Although now you might be watching a replay. I don't really know. Why does Lauren have a wrench next to her name? Because she's a moderator. That seems to have been answered already. What other questions do we have here? How do you send money on here? The $ at the bottom is the super chat button. David, how are you? I'm doing well, thank you. I appreciate that. What other questions do we have that I can specifically answer? People talking about Reddit. Do I want to hear a joke? Not really. That's my honest answer. I'm not really interested in hearing any jokes right now. Why do I pay attention to the trolls? Well, I think it's important to know that they're there. But I don't know that I pay any disproportionate amount of attention. Am I East Coast or West Coast? Of course, a rap question. I don't think I'm either. I think I'm both, and I've enjoyed the rap stylings of both. I'm deliberately trying to sound out of touch, by the way. No, I have both East Coast and West Coast 90s rap. I'm a fan of both East Coast and West Coast 90s rap. Okay. All right, let me jump back into Super Chat. Christina asks, when do I typically go to sleep and when do I typically wake up? Very, very good and specific question. Christina always asks incredibly specific questions. I typically go to sleep on weeknights between 11 and midnight, and I wake up at 7:40 p.m. I'm sorry, a.m., 7:40 a.m. At least that's when I try to wake up, although sometimes I am up ahead of my alarm clock. Bala5984 has sent a €5 super chat. Should coastal cities be abandoned because we're only at 1 of 2 degrees Celsius and storms will get stronger in future? Irma is registered by seismographs. Yeah, apparently equipment that typically measures earthquakes is being triggered by Hurricane Irma. Listen, I live in Boston, and I worry. I mean, what should I be living in Boston? Does it make any sense to live in a city like Boston or Miami or San Francisco or LA or whatever, given what we are anticipating in terms of sea level rise? I don't know. I mean, in the Netherlands, they figured out how to do the below sea level thing. And I hope that it will be okay to continue living in Boston, but it does concern me. It is very, very concerning. Jermaine Fedor has sent a $10 super chat. I just figured out how super chat works. I just wanted to tell you that you're my favorite political analyst. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. A couple other questions from the regular chat. Who's taller, me or Kyle Kalinske? I think Kyle is taller. I don't know how tall Kyle is. Most of the time I've been with Kyle, we're sitting, like at a restaurant or a coffee shop. So I don't know. I think Kyle's probably a little bit taller. What product do I use in my hair? I always forget what it's called. I think it's American Crew Fiber Hair Wax or something like that. Something like that, I think, is what... I think that's what I use. Okay, I made a promise at the beginning of this live stream that I was not going to just telethon throughout the entire thing and talk about membership and Patreon. On the advice of many of our viewers, I mentioned Patreon and membership at the beginning of the stream. I will mention it now about halfway through, and I will mention it at the end. The test is, will just as many people sign up for membership and Patreon if I only mention it 3 times, spaced very, very far apart or not? So far, the numbers are not looking that good. I will first briefly do a couple of thank yous for Patreon. We are trying to get to 2,000 patrons at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Patrons now get at the $2 level access to exclusive behind-the-scenes videos as well as the monthly patron-only newsletter. Starting tomorrow at the $5 level, patrons will get access to the world-famous bonus show. And at the $10 level, patrons will get access to the behind-the-scenes videos, the patron-only newsletter, the bonus show, as well as the full show. And at the $25 level, you'll get all that stuff plus invites to supporter-only live streams. Very exciting. And I have 2 thank yous to do. Amidar has pledged $5 a month, and Frank Witter has pledged $10 a month. My goal by the end of the stream is 1,900 patrons. And again, because I've made this commitment for at least today to only talk about Patreon and membership 3 times, I don't know if we'll get there, but we are at 1,884. We started at 1,882. I would like to be at 1,900 by the end of the live stream. Now, as far as membership goes, I also have new member thank yous to make. Louis Stein has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. And Liezel Torres has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. If you want a discount, you can use the coupon code I voted 17. I think somebody said, oh yeah, the last super chat, I'm sorry, the last coupon code we did before the vacation, Stupid Watergate 17, is still in the description. It still works. So if people want to use that, it's an even bigger discount. Okay, that's it. And I will only mention Patreon and membership again at the very, very end of the live stream. Okay, Clarth1234 jumping us directly back into Spanish super chats. And of course, I had a 2-week period visiting family of mine in Argentina where I was mostly speaking just Spanish, and it was very, very exciting. Clarth sent a $5 Australian super chat saying, David te vio en la portada de Reddit. Estoy orgulloso de ti por finalmente ser honesto acerca de tu sexualidad. También, ¿cómo es la situación legal? Okay, so first, so by the way, this is Google translated English to Spanish, so it contains any number of grammatical and syntax errors. So what Clarth is saying is that he saw me on the front page of Reddit, that he's proud of me for finally being honest about my sexuality, which is some kind of joke, and how is the legal situation? Okay, so, geez, the legal situation. Hold on just 1 second. I have to block someone here. There we go. Okay, sorry for that distraction. So before the vacation, I notified you that we were threatened with a lawsuit. And we were threatened with a lawsuit by a law firm that basically does like mass demand letters. We were asked for many, many thousands of dollars. And for an image that was used over 2 years ago, about 26 months ago, on the program in the background, right over my shoulder during the show, and we were being demanded many, many thousands of dollars. There were a number of copyright attorneys in our audience who were kind enough to get in touch with me, and I don't have an update on that yet, other than to say we have not yet been sued. So that's good news. We've got that going for us, despite losing 85% of YouTube ad revenue. But no, we have not yet been sued, and that's a good thing. Every day that we are not sued is a pretty good day, right? Okay, Actual Justice Warrior has sent a $2 super chat. Do you find anything strange about Charlottesville? I don't know if that's a conspiratorial type question. Do I find anything strange about Charlottesville? I don't know. By the way, for people saying that I had a hard time with the Spanish, there's a couple things going on. Number one, I was reading Spanish that was translated by Google Translate from English, and it's riddled with grammatical and syntax errors, so I really have to think through how it's written because it doesn't make any sense. And also, I speak Argentinian Spanish. It is not standard Spanish. The typical Spanish that you hear in the United States is sort of Central and Northern South American Spanish, which does have some differences. Argentinian Spanish is particularly different, and a lot of people, it's very common that people hear me speak and they assume that there's something wrong with my Spanish, and there may well be something wrong with Argentinian Spanish, but it's just different. It's just different. Okay, Actual Justice Warrior, I don't know. I find a lot of things disturbing about Charlottesville, but I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at. Jamal Swift has sent a $30 super chat. I keep reading that the electoral voting system can't be changed. What are your thoughts? Well, it's not that it can't be changed, okay? It's not that the electoral college that we have can't be changed. There's a couple different things. If we want to go to popular vote nationally and away from the electoral college, you need a constitutional amendment, which requires, I always forget, I believe it's 3/4 of the states and 2/3 of the House and Senate, or was it 2/3 of the states and it's 3/4 of the states and 2/3 of the House and Senate, I believe. And that's not going to happen, okay? So what other options are there? Well, there's something called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, or National Interstate Popular Vote Compact, something like that. And what that would be is, if enough states whose sum total of electoral votes are 270 agree that they will award their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote nationally, they can circumvent, because states can decide how to award electoral votes, they can circumvent the National Electoral College and instead basically make a de facto popular vote. That's one option. The other possibility that would give us something very close to a national popular vote in presidential elections would be if all states decided to award electoral votes proportionally. Now, it's not a perfect solution because some states have so few delegates, so few electoral votes by virtue of a low population that they would basically have the same electoral vote distribution whether one candidate gets 51, 61, or 71% of the vote, right? It depends on the state and the population. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be closer. So it's not that the system can't be changed. It's that to truly change it at the constitutional level, you need something that's just not going to happen. Olivia Vengata has sent a $10 super chat. Black people and white people who were never slaves are fighting white people who were never Nazis over Confederate statues that were erected by Democrats, but somehow it's all Donald Trump's fault. I hope that was worth $10 for you. I've not heard anyone saying that the fact that Confederate statues are around is Donald Trump's fault. The Confederate statues were erected by Democrats involves, it's such a tired talking point, Olivia, but there's been a drastic party realignment in the United States, and it really doesn't tell us very much about modern politics to say Confederate statues were erected by Democrats. And the premise to the question, I don't even really understand. So I appreciate the super chat. I don't know. I don't know what else I can really say about that. Christina has sent a $2 super chat. Do you have any shows you enjoy? Game of Thrones. Okay, so Game of Thrones has come up on the broadcast show over the last 10 days. I've only ever seen 15 or 20 minutes of a single episode of Game of Thrones on an airplane, and I barely remember anything about it. So I do have shows that I enjoy. Many shows, very, very important shows. I've recently started watching Ozark, the Netflix original Ozark, with Jason Bateman. 2 episodes in. I like it. I like it so far. Very, very good. Very, very good program. Big fan of Breaking Bad. I like Better Call Saul, House of Cards, The Americans. I recently watched Travelers Season 1. I don't know how many seasons there are. It was okay. It was okay. What other shows do I like? I really liked Mad Men. I watched Sons of Anarchy. It was okay. I could go on, but those are so. Oh, by the way, I really liked. It's only like 7 or 8 episodes. Ascension is a very cool sci-fi show that I really enjoyed because there's not that much good sci-fi around, and there's only like half a season. I guess they're calling it 1 season, but yeah, those are a few of the shows that I like. Okay, let's do a run through of the non-super chat. People saying the stream keeps freezing. I don't think it's on my end because my video uploader is working fine, but I am seeing the glitches as I monitor the stream, so it might be a YouTube issue. What do I do when I'm in Argentina? Mostly visit family, but this time I did also make a side trip to Mendoza and did a little wine tasting in the wine region there, and it was an interesting side trip. I did a full bonus show about my trip to Argentina, by the way. You can check it out. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? I see you have art in your apartment. Yeah, finally got a piece of art up. Like that people noticed that. People saying anybody who speaks Spanish realizes that it's not that I have trouble with Spanish, it's that I speak Argentinian Spanish. Do I think a Kasich Marco Rubio ticket would have beaten Trump? Well, no, because a Kasich Rubio ticket in the general election would have been a second Republican ticket, and they would have split a lot of the Republican vote. So it might have done better than Trump, but it probably would have guaranteed victory for Hillary Clinton, which I would have been fine with, by the way. Okay, let's jump back into the super chat as there are any number of super chats coming in fast and furious. JWolf1991, $20. Thank you. David, I messed up the last super chat. I've noticed your subscriptions increasing since I started following you. Do you think these numbers would be different if Trump weren't in office? As we all know, Trump equals content. Listen, I did not vote for Donald Trump. Excuse me, just adjusting here. But there is no question that Donald Trump's election has been very good for programs like mine, and we saw a significant acceleration in new subscribers and members and patrons and the whole thing under Donald Trump. So I think you're right. The numbers would be different if we did not have Donald Trump in office. Yesenia Moreno, $10 super chat. I'm not surprised about Robert E. Lee's great-grandson. It was actually his great-great-great-great-nephew, I believe. Racism, bigotry, and a lack of empathy is a big problem in the Christian church. I say this as a Christian, so I know. Thank you for calling them out. Okay, so maybe you're talking about something else. We did a story on the bonus show about Robert E. Lee's great-great-great-great-nephew going on the MTV VMAs and basically denouncing Robert E. Lee, and he's a pastor, and his church basically hated it and said it sounded like he was supporting social justice warriors and Black Lives Matter, and he's quit. He's quit, and it's absolutely vile and disgusting. Wes Smoke, $10 super chat. DACA, how do you view Sessions' reasoning? What's your opinion on children, young adults, and U.S. workers? I've talked quite a bit yesterday and today about DACA, so I don't want to fill the live stream with it, but what I will tell you, Wes, is on some issues, you have to go to the minutia to really understand what's going on. With some issues, you have to get out of the minutia and go to the high level right? And I think that that's where I have a problem. Jeff Sessions is trying to use micro-reasoning when if someone came to the U.S. as a kid before they were legally able to make decisions about what they are doing, doesn't matter how old they are now, you can't in good conscience kick them out. Now, there are countries that would. I don't believe it's becoming of the United States. So I think that if you came here, if you have dreamer status, if you came here because your parents brought you here and you were a kid, you should not be deported. You probably have very little connection in many cases to the country you came from. Or at least it wouldn't be the decision of the U.S. to say you go back, or it shouldn't be. Abot 55081 has sent a $5 super chat. David, what do you personally think should be done about North Korea? Complicated issue. I want to propose something to you that I've been reading more and more about and that some people think is crazy at first glance, but actually in some ways makes quite a bit of sense. What if instead of the current approach with North Korea, we went to North Korea and we said, hey, you know what? You're a country. We don't agree with your politics. We don't agree with how you treat your people. We don't agree with any of it. But rather than taking action that would definitively be terrible for the citizens of your country, we're going to allow you a seat at the big boy table. We are going to allow you to do some research into a nuclear program. You will be allowed to have a nuclear program, but you've got to play by the rules. You have to allow inspectors in. You have to, what else do you have to do? You can't make threats to use nuclear weapons against other countries. You have to tone down the rhetoric. Maybe it would be productive. Maybe it would be productive and it would actually create a better situation. Because if we actually think about the reasons why Kim Jong-un would want nuclear weapons and why he would make threats, a lot of them are indicative of a total, megalomaniac. But at the same time, there are reasons why, if he looks around the world and he says, how are other countries that have nukes treated compared to countries that don't? I think I want nukes. I'm just floating it as an idea, and there's a number of foreign policy analysts who have suggested this, and I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting. 0132 making themselves the Super Chat All-Star of today's live stream with a $100.01 Super Chat, making, I believe, the total contributions $200.02 for the evening. Stunning. Stunning. How do you know that Trump is the reason for your show growing rather than YouTube demonetization and other tangential effects? Well, the accelerated growth of the audience started right after Trump's election and accelerated after Trump's inauguration, right? November and January. Demonetization started on March 31st. It's like a marked in an imaginary calendar in my head. So the accelerated growth of the show predated YouTube demonetization, okay? Jennifer Carrain has sent a $20 super chat. I like the new perks you are adding to Patreon subscribers. Are the perks like supporter-only chats for those of us who are members too? Or do I need to up my Patreon amount? Jennifer, listen, you've done enough for the show. I would never tell you need to up your Patreon amount. That's on a personal level. But in addition to that, no, we are offering a lot of all that stuff is going to be available for members and for patrons, assuming the patrons reach the level that is prescribed on Patreon. So it will be members and patrons invited to the members-only live streams. We will be doing the behind-the-scenes videos, all of this great stuff. And it's very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. That I can tell you. Clarth1234 is chiming in with another, presumably Google translated Spanish super chat. Another one at the $5 Australian level. I'm kind of liking these. These are clever. Clever in that they're funny. David, cambia tus donaciones a Streamlabs para que Google no obtenga el 30% de todos tus super chats. También, ¿qué tan preciso es Social Blade? Okay. So first thing, Clarth is suggesting that I change my donations and run them through Streamlabs. I don't even know what that is. Streamlabs donations. Let's see. So what? Streamlabs. I don't know. Can you even switch super chat to Streamlabs. I don't know how that really works. I will look into that. Very, very interesting. In addition, I just lost the super chat. How precise is Social Blade? Clarth is asking. Yeah, so Social Blade is a website where you can basically type in any YouTube channel and it will give you information about that channel. Everything ranging from new subscribers, views, revenue, all sorts of stuff. Let's take a look. How accurate is it? My instinct has always been that it's not hugely accurate. I think what is accurate on Social Blade are the monthly subscriber numbers, maybe. I think that that is pretty accurate because when you look at it, you see that it really starts to go off the charts in November of 2016, just as I mentioned, and even in February, which, like I mentioned, predates demonetization. A lot of the other stuff is not particularly accurate, including earnings are certainly not accurate. Earnings, it's funny. Earnings appear to be based on what YouTube channels used to make a really long time ago. CPMs, of course, how much you make per 1,000 views have trickled down steadily. And the estimates on earnings also don't account for the YouTube demonetization. So yeah, that's my thought. That's my thought about Social Blade. Interesting tool. There's another one someone pointed me to. I think it's socialrank.com, which is also... Oh, Social Rank is for Instagram and Twitter. Okay. Anyway, good question, Clarth. Appreciate it. Always appreciate super chats from Clarth. Okay, what else did I have on my agenda today? Hurricane stuff. Listen, I've been getting... I don't know why anyone would ask me about this, but I've been getting emails from people saying, I live in Florida, and I saw what happened in Texas with Hurricane Harvey, and I don't know that I would evacuate if there was an evacuation order. Evacuate if there's an evacuation order. I am not a meteorologist. I am not a climatologist. I'm not anything, right? I'm just some guy who has observed what happens when people don't evacuate. I believe that if you were told to evacuate, you should evacuate. This is serious stuff. People die. It's not good. It's not good. Evacuate. And I've not been in this situation, and I know it's really easy for me to say because I live in Massachusetts where we get big winter storms, and you never are told to evacuate when there's a winter storm. And what else do we have? We don't have earthquakes here. We don't really have to deal with flooding. We don't have hurricanes. I don't know. I know it's very easy for me to say, but you can be damn sure if I'm told to evacuate, I am evacuating. And again, I don't know why anyone would ask me, but I think that that's what you should do. Pita Derbez has sent a $2 super chat with no question or comment. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. 013232 has chimed in with another $22.21 super chat, making it an even 22222. Read whatever question follows this. I'm a peace, have a good stream. Whatever question follows this. I don't know what that means. Does that mean from someone else? I'll do this. I'll do another run through the regular chat and see what questions there are that people might have. Are David and Pat a couple? Oh boy. No. Pat, as far as I know, exclusively dates women, as do I. So Pat and I are not a couple. Is Pat upstairs? No, Pat doesn't live with me. What other questions do we have here? I agree with your approach to North Korea. That's interesting. That's very interesting. David, what do you make of the possibility of agent provocateurs on either side of the protest? Basically, police pretending to be protesters, escalating. We Are Change had an interesting piece on it. Yeah, I don't... and let me talk about Instagram winners in a second. I don't deny that agent provocateurs exist. And I also don't deny that there are instances I've seen pretty compelling evidence of police ratcheting up in order to justify more oppression against protesters. I don't know if you have a specific protest in mind, so I wouldn't be able to say for sure. But that is, I'm not ideologically committed to saying that never happens. No, it definitely does happen. It definitely does happen. Okay. When have I announced the Instagram winners? They were announced on today's program. So last week, a viewer named Patrick Ferreira sponsored 5 memberships, which required hashtagging with David Pakman Show 17, some kind of image, video, graphic, meme, whatever on Instagram related to the show. Could be caricatures of me or Pat, could be mashups or remixes. We got a bunch of submissions, and the 5 winners were announced today. So you can hear that on the podcast. If you're a member or a patron, you can see it on the full show. And otherwise, the standalone clip with those winners will be going live tonight. Stephen Grayer has sent a $5 super chat. David, you should look into using Streamlabs. All of the money goes directly to your PayPal. I'm going to look into it. I'm going to look into Streamlab after the stream. Okay, so I do appreciate the suggestions. Okay, I've been good. I have not been doing telethon David live streams. I do want to thank a couple other people who have signed up for membership. Robert Bieniek, I do not know how to pronounce that, has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Thank you to Robert, who now gets the bonus show and the full show and the invitations to the members and Patreon-only live streams and all sorts of other great stuff. Thank you to Karen Peters, who has signed up at davidpakman.com/livestream. And sadly, I have no patrons left to thank, because it seems when I don't do telethon-style live streams, not that many people become patrons or sign up for membership, which is sad. So if you missed the beginning of the show, the idea was a handful of people said, David, I love the live streams, but I don't love when you talk about membership and Patreon. It's too much like Home Shopping Network or, some kind of telethon. What about just mentioning at the beginning, middle, and towards the end of the live stream that you are thanking new members and patrons, and there's a target. For today, it was 1,900 patrons, for example. And I bet some people suggested that you would get just as many new members and new patrons as if you talk about it throughout. And it does not appear to have happened. I am willing to continue testing this idea. It's great to have more time to do the political content, but so far it hasn't happened. And we are in a complex situation when it comes to revenue. And believe me, it's not for fun that I talk about membership and Patreon. It's because these are necessary revenue sources. So today, the test was not hugely successful. It was not hugely successful when it comes to not talking much about those things. Let's do a couple other super chats. GR has sent a $5 super chat. GR making an appearance. I was wondering where GR was, known for his incoherent rants. GR says, let's talk pumpkins, D's. How funny would it be, D, to see the Trump nasty stomp out a flaming bag of poop with his feet, D's? Love GR. That would be funny. I don't know what it has to do with pumpkins. Of course, we are only about 7 weeks from not Thanksgiving, but rather, what's that thing called? Halloween. But I don't know what flaming bags of poop have to do with pumpkins, but I'll look into that. Diego Moran has sent a $5 super chat. What did you have against people that voted for Jill Stein in blue states? Wouldn't a vote for her have been more effective than a vote for Hillary in a blue state? Effective for what? I'm not a Green Party guy, and I thought that Jill Stein was nutty. So for me, when we got to the presidential election of November 2016, by voting for Hillary Clinton here in Massachusetts, I voted for the candidate that was closest to my political beliefs. Did I vote for Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary? No. Was I going to vote for Jill Stein? No, I was not going to vote for her. GR sending another $5 super chat. No good light to put Trump in, but carving his face in a pumpkin, then smashing that pumpkin. No pies, just smashed pumpkin. Love GR. Okay. Well, I am not an advocate of violence. That I can tell you. And Clarth1234, third super chat of the evening at a $2 Australian level. Lewis Motamedi update, Twitch stream when? So I am going to see Lewis tomorrow. Tomorrow night, Lewis and I will be taking in the season opener of the New England Patriots, a Julian Edelman free New England Patriots due to a sad injury that has been sustained by Julian Edelman. And I will ask him about the Twitch streaming. I will ask about that. Yesenia Moreno has sent a $2 super chat. Will you interview non-political YouTubers? I don't know who you have in mind. I've interviewed Anthony Fantano from The Needle Drop. Haven't I? Right? He's been on the show. I know. Yeah, he's been on the show. Right? Now I'm doubting. Yes, of course. Anthony Fantano has been on the show. Now I was doubting whether it was a YouTube-only thing. But yeah, Anthony's been on at least twice. Once we talked about streaming revenue for musicians on things like Spotify. And I don't remember what the subject of the other one we did. And Lewis once interviewed Anthony Fantano, the internet's busiest music nerd. Send me your thoughts offline as to who it is that you would like me to interview, and I will absolutely look into it. All right, that's it for this stream. Thanks to everybody who contributed via Patreon, now with full member benefits on Patreon, membership, super chat, the entire thing. I'll do another live stream soon.